Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much history we want to get into with you, man. I was going through your discography. There's a lot that I knew about you already, but there's a lot that I didn't even know you were a part of. So I just want to get started from the beginning here. As part of the Cornaboyz, you guys did some work with Jagged Edge early on. Like, how did you guys connect with Jagged Edge?
Well, we met Jagged Edge through we were band for a talent show that they hosted back in Hartford, Connecticut, which is where we were attending college. And in the process of becoming the house band, we ended up having part of our job was to produce rehearsal tracks for the contestants, and that
Mm.
ended up being production prowess at the time. Um, and that led to an invitation to come to Atlanta and work with them. And initially, it was an opportunity to go on tour um, that turned into us working in the studio.
Wow, that's amazing. And like from what I've heard about Brian and Brandon, they're very quick in the
Oh,
studio. They can bang out a hit like right away. Like when you
yeah.
were initially in the studio with them, like what stood out to you right away?
Um, the speed for one, and the fact that there was no pens and pads involved. Coming
Wow.
into that was like our first experience coming into the business with seasoned professional writers. So to see them just walk in the booth, literally um, hearing the beat the first time and immediately scanning just some melodic genius that they would just spin it into amazing songs. You know what I mean? That we all
Yeah.
come to.
Yeah. I mean, just so many records with Jagged Edge here. Seasons Changed, obviously being one of the ones that are most notable. Like, what works so well with you guys in Jagged? Because I noticed you were on a lot of, their first few albums.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, but I think it's just the commonality of we all come out of the church, and that immediately will give you some sort of baseline in terms of melodic sensibility and just singing from a certain place of inspiration. So I think it started there, and then just that similitude of melodic preference.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we end up being in a lot of the same spaces, and yeah, that always leads to magic anytime you
Yeah.
have a foundation.
Yeah. Seasons Change is definitely magic. That's one of my favorites from Jagged. So well done
Yeah.
on that one, man.
Appreciate
So I was going through your discography here, and like early on, of course, with the Cornaboyz, you guys did a lot, but I didn't even know you were part of One Two Step by Sierra. I always thought that was a Jazzy Faye record. Like, just talk about the creation of that one.
Oh yeah. Well, with that record, I didn't have anything to do with the music production, but
Mm,
at the time I was working very closely with I had a manager by the name of Chris Hicks, who was a part of the
yeah,
the New Time conglomerate, essentially, which was him, Noonie, and Ryan Glover. And so, we cross pollinated a lot of opportunities through that relationship. And Jazzy obviously was a part of that family of producers. And when he did the One Two Step record, they gave me a call and gave me the opportunity to come in and vocal produce that record. So
mm,
that was and I had already had some rapport built with Sierra at the time,
yeah,
and had been over at Red Zone with Tricky Stewart and Dream and everybody at that time, just like co-writing and working on records before she got her deal. So
right.
one step was like the follow-up to the success of Goodies, and it was it was a fun experience. There was one moment in there. I share that story. There was one moment in there where Sierra, being a new artist, she was very humble, and the line that says top charted ever since the day I started. You know,
Yeah,
so there was some. She had a little bit of static. Like, I don't know if I wanted what's good. She wasn't sure if she wanted to say that. I was like, well, you're not lying.
right.
It's cool. It's not, it's one thing if you're capping, if you're just popping off, right? But yeah, she was very much so concerned about that at first, but then we just jumped into it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's actually a really dope line. Like that's a line that stands out on that record. So
Yeah,
that's a
absolutely.
great one.
That's
Um,
that music thing. So
yeah. So, I mean, Pierre, a couple of weeks ago, I had a chance to interview Rico Love, and one thing that he said and that stood out in that interview about you is that he learned vocal production from you. Like that
yeah,
was your thing. Like, how did you get started in that, and what makes a good vocal producer?
man, I'll be honest with you. My my partner when my partner Daniel Moore, who I moved with, it was him, myself, and D Town, who was
Yeah.
my production partner. But Daniel Moore was vocal, uh, really he was a vocal scholar, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like he worked with choirs and stuff like that when we met in college. So that kind of gave me the opportunity to see, how to really get vocalists to open up
Yeah.
and provide their best performance. That was the beginning of it. And then I would say from there was the exposure to seeing JQ,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
who's another like beast, and then watching Tricky Stewart, and then excuse me, I'm gonna transition to another area so
Yeah.
these guys get started in their session. Hey, oh yeah, appreciate that, man. Yeah. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna get set up in here for us.
Yeah.
Um,
No worries.
yeah. So hold on. It was JQ, Tricky, and then the GOAT was Kook. Kook
Mm.
was, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you get to watch these guys work. You start realizing, oh, okay, there's a science to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just end up with the magic of a record um, yeah, turn it on. Yeah, perfect. You don't end up with the magic of these records without someone kind of steering and guide the journey to that point. So those were kind of like the guys that showed me the ropes and helped me to like kind of gain an identity essentially, because
Right.
kind of at first, and I think in the beginning, you kind of start superimposing your identity on these singers. It
Yeah.
takes you before you kind of get into the space where you learn, okay, now this is about highlighting the artist. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? Give them an opportunity to showcase and shine through. And so it's just from there, it's just about getting into their personality, creating a comfort zone for them to be able to perform at their highest and at their best. And that's what those guys did for, in terms of, that's what they demonstrated to me. I think when you look at it, it looks like you're just cracking the whip. Or, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Domineering situation. It really isn't that though. It's like when you get into that locked space with an artist, they trust you, and
Yeah.
so trust comes the ability to push a little bit more and to ask for them to give a little bit more of themselves. And if you've done your job right, then it doesn't feel like as much of a strain. And I
Right.
mean, was around in the mix of all of that, watching all of that. I mean, we were in such close proximity, being that we all kind of cohabited together. And
Yeah.
so he would be right there watching these sessions, really just kind of absorbing it, by being around.
Yeah.
And then look up 3-4 years later, and then he's blazing. He had a journey with that as well as a vocal
Yeah.
producer. Funny enough, when as careers go up and down, when I had like one of those down swoops in my career, we
Yeah.
relate, and he was able to then show me what he had learned. Well,
Mm.
this is methods that I knew of before, but I hadn't really employed them because I just felt like it was, I just was like, man, that's a lot to do when we just want to get to the point.
Right.
What I learned in that process was, no, take a little bit more time and you can glean even more detail. And so from
Yeah.
there, it's only just graduated. And I feel like anybody that's committed to art, you only get better and better through the willingness to perpetually be a student, continuously
Yeah.
learn and own your craft.
Yeah. And we'll touch on it later, but I feel like the vocal production, even on the Usher record, like there's an
Yeah.
art to that, to getting the artist to emote and make you feel something. That's one of the things that I feel like with a lot of R&B records today, I don't feel it like I did back in the
Yeah.
day. And I know there's an art to that. So I want to get into that in a bit.
Yeah.
But even before we get into that, like those early Cornaboy days with you, D-Town, like you said, Rico Love is in the mix. Like, just take me back to those days, just grinding. Like, what was that period like?
Man, it was just, when I think back on it now, it's like it was a really magical time, because man, it's so much talent around, you know, that has now since grown into just so many amazing individuals. I mean, I spoke with one of my partners, Daniel Moore. He is
Mhm.
currently the music director for Mariah Carey. He,
Mm.
you know, tours the world with her, but even before her, I mean, he was just touring the world with so many artists, too many, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
between him, my other partner, D Town, who has been pretty much Rico Love's right hand man
Yeah.
production. And I mean, so that means all of the work that flows through Rico's channel
Yeah.
has in many ways been touched by Dwayne, and even their new artists, Mia Ariana, like they're working very closely on that project. So
Yeah.
uh, it's I mean, man, I mean, we imagine imagine an apartment where all your friends are pretty much rooming together. You know what I mean? Like everybody has a palette and like just working every day. You know what I'm saying? In pursuit of that dream. So uh, it's just, man, it's been amazing. It's been
Yeah.
amazing.
And just to see the work that you guys have done throughout the years, like I want to get into a couple here. These are just some personal favorites of mine. Marcus Houston's All Because of You,
Yes.
Omarion's I Wish. Like, just take me back to those records. Like, what do you remember about creating those ones?
Well, well, let me put a caveat by it because in every record, even just how I had specified with 1-2 Step that, you know, that wasn't something that I necessarily produced. You
Yeah,
know, when you're a part of records, there's a lot of ways to be involved. And so
sure.
in each one, you know, there was a different kind of iteration. Um, and so, uh, like with All Because of You, that's a situation where that was a track produced by D-Town.
Mm,
Uh, Rico Love comes and puts the writing on it, right? And then we had like a whole machine. So, and then
right.
I would demo it for us to be able to pitch it and to sell it. And then I would vocal produce it. And
Mm,
that was the magic of that moment. And then I just remember being in Marcus Houston and just feeling that sense of, man, this is special. Like this
yeah,
record feels really good. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was evident in how that record played out um, publicly. But I wish for Omarion, again, another bomb of a record, right?
yeah,
That D-Town produced that record as well musically,
yeah,
right? And so what ended up happening is Rico picked that one out.
yeah.
And demoing that one, we were working with the kid who was signed to Blackground at the time, Amy.
Yeah.
And we had Q demo the record. And
Okay.
so, you know, it's so funny with I Wish, the story behind I Wish, right? Because when we cut the record with Omarion, he was out of the phase where his was changing, and he now had the deeper tone.
Yeah,
And so questionability about whether or not he was going to be able to pull it off because it's a little higher in his register.
yeah,
But I manager Chris Hicks at the time telling me like, listen, pull this off, we're gonna go places. You know what I'm saying? Like it was kind of a personal challenge. Like I was like, no, Omarion's gonna kill this record. Have you heard him sing? I was like, this kid is amazing.
hmm,
So we got we we got to it, man. Omarion killed it and ended up being the first record you hear when you hear his album. So you know that was a huge win for us. That record definitely it was #1 for a couple weeks. So
yeah. Can't forget about on that same album, I'm Gonna Change. I think
oh yeah,
One Chance recorded that one, right?
One Chance did the original recording
Okay.
of I'm Gonna Change and
Yeah,
yeah, so that record definitely had a life of its own. That's one of the ones that I composed. I did the production on that one.
right.
Or D Town and I both did that together, but I kind of let off on it. And man, that was another one that was like we're in there with Omarion trying to get this huge vocal performance, and you know that one we had to do a little work on. I'll be honest, but
Right.
he killed it. You know what I'm saying? Like he delivered it.
Yeah. I mean, take me through that process. You were mentioning it earlier with the Cornaboyz. It was sort of like everyone had their own roles and it could change
Yeah.
depending on the song. How does that type of situation compare to what you're doing now, where you're taking on the majority of the record? Like, is there a certain process that you enjoy more?
Um. Honestly, I love it all, bro. I
Yeah,
love every I love every part of it. I have grown to have a specific kind of love for vocal production
yeah,
because to me that's the I feel like it has the greatest gratification to some
Sure.
extent. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you get to really be involved in curating how you want people to feel.
Mm,
Like first thing they hear, you know what I'm saying? Those
yeah.
vocals, when those come through, that creates immediate connection with the record. You know? Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, at any point, it's like, it could be composition,
right.
vocal production, it could be actually recording on any given day. It's a blessing to be able to have the skill sets that are, able to switch up like that.
Yeah.
I've even been able to be blessed with the opportunity to mix records as well. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it's a rarity to have that many different iterations of talent, but it also allows you to be able to come into a lot of different situations and add
Right.
value, you know.
Yeah. Can never stop learning, right?
And I try to perpetually be a student. Any room I walk in, I feel like there's something there to learn.
Right. I want to get into these records here now. Asia Cruz, Tanisha Kelly, and this era is so interesting to me because what we do, on our podcast, we always look back at certain years in R&B and what was going on, and we actually talked about 2006 and 2007, and
Yeah,
someone kind of mentioned that was like the Cornaboyz year,
yeah,
and like those records didn't necessarily become huge smashes on Billboard. But when you
right.
look at the streaming numbers and you look at the MySpace plays at the time, those numbers were huge. Like, what
Yeah.
did that teach you about the music industry? Because traditionally we just look at Billboard success, but that MySpace success at the time, that was a different type of success.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it makes you go back and have to reframe what you're calling success
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, sometimes when you're ahead of the curve, you can be already achieving at the new, level of success essentially, and sometimes just be holding on to the old markers of success. But in the case with like Tanisha Kelly, that was one of those situations. That record was so amazing. You know what I
yeah.
mean? She wasn't the first person to cut it, but she was
Mm,
definitely the last person. We had the first of all the girl that demoed the record named Lachey Martin
okay.
from Milwaukee, amazing singer. Met her through Chad Roper, C Note Roper, who is also a very accomplished mix engineer, vocal producer, writer in his own right. Um, he brought Lachey to us. He demoed it and really set the tone. So the record had such a rich, like, just hearty feeling. So then we went from her demo to working with a girl group called Mahogany.
Okay.
One of
I remember them. Yeah.
Mahogany had V Bozeman,
Yeah.
Jordan Rain, a couple other young ladies. Teacher, I think Teacher was a part of that group. Tedra Chris, no, that was a different group. Hold on, yeah, it was a couple other girls they had swapped out, but
Right.
they cut the record, and to be honest with you, their version to me was like my favorite. I think
Mm,
for a while, it took me a while to kind of like get away from the demoitis of what they recorded.
right.
Um, because Tanisha has a very distinct sound. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of what she brought to life was already kind of imbibed from the performance that Mahogany gave. But that was one of those records that, again, like you said, it caught fire on MySpace.
Yeah.
We didn't have any sense of what that meant or how to monetize it. Like now that has become like the standard of how
Right.
records exist and live and even are able to monetize now. So yeah, it's an amazing feeling. And okay, so with Asia Cruz,
Yeah.
that was more so, I think, interestingly enough, I think it was a marketing ploy gone wrong, essentially,
Mm,
because they tried to keep, her identity very obscure and clandestine, and they didn't really want to showcase the Asian side of who she was for I didn't really understand the reasoning behind that. That was more so a call from her label execs
okay.
and something that they had kind of curated to get people to love the record and the music first before
Sure.
making a judgment about whether they like the artist. You know what I mean? I guess to that end, it did work in the sense that
Yeah.
a lot of people were drawn to the record, you know what I'm saying? And then the video comes out, right? And
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, okay, that's who sings that. All right. Well, let me see let me see. You know what I mean? Like people were still around, checked into it because they had already bought in terms of liking the record a lot, you know. So that's what I
Yeah,
learned
I
from.
mean, it's just so interesting looking at those records and like just how big they got. Like, what do you think contributed to that? Is it just a matter of them being great songs, or do you feel like you were targeting a certain audience and it just worked? Like, just talk about that.
Um, I, man, that's a mysterious question in many ways because
Yeah,
what connects with people is what connects with people. I think
yeah,
as creators, though, that's why I think it's our job to just stay very anchored to what speaks to us first and foremost, and then balancing that with what we feel or what we observe connects with the world. It's always kind of walking a tightrope and balancing those sensibilities. Because yes,
mm,
do I want to make a smash hit record every time I go in the studio? Absolutely.
yeah,
But I also want to preserve my integrity musically and make sure that I'm making things that I feel like will represent me in the course of time. Like these records that you're bringing up, I can
yeah.
play them with the same sense of pride as the day we created them, and
Wow,
that's important to me from a legacy standpoint, to
right.
make records, they stand the test of time.
Yeah. Someone wanted us to shout out the Jagged Edge record you guys did, Girls Gone Wild. That was a great one.
Yeah, yeah. Come on, that was
Uh,
a fun. I for some reason I thought that record was going to be a lot bigger, because they were coming off of the success of Girls Gone Wild. I mean, the what was it? Where the Party, right? The
yeah,
single Where, and I was like, yeah, this will do it. That's one of them times where sometimes you're creating something and you think you're targeting something, you think it's going to hit a certain way, and then sometimes they don't connect. But that record has some other hits on it. That was
yeah,
that had some other smashes on it that did really well.
yeah. That was a great album. And then someone wanted me to mention the Latoya record you guys did.
Oh man, What Love Can Do. That
That's a great
was
one.
man. What Love Can Do was fun, man. Interesting story with that. That was a record that at the time Olivia was heating up at Interscope over at
Mhm. Yeah,
and Jimmy Iovine was very adamant about wanting that record, because it had sort of a Dre-esque type of feel, the big
right.
piano and all of that. And we, at the time, because of our relationship again with Chris Hicks and the Noontime family that was kind of representing Latoya as well,
Yeah,
we decided to go with Home Team at that point, instead of, pursuing the Interscope opportunity with Jimmy.
yeah,
Um, I don't regret it. At the end of the day, I look at it like, this business will put you through your paces with respect to loyalty and with respect to, making the best decision for your career. Like
yeah,
when you're faced where like, hey, you can give the record here or you can do the record here. You know, it's like you have to make the best decision. The best decision within first.
yeah. And then I had to bring up this record. This didn't even come out. I think it like was on MySpace, but the Carrie Hilson record, High Heels.
Oh yeah.
That record is crazy.
Have you ever heard interesting story with Carrie, right?
Yeah.
Her album was entitled "In a Perfect World,"
Yep.
but I don't think the world ever heard the record "In a Perfect World,"
Mm,
which was
nope.
by the Cornaboyz. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I wasn't sure what happened with that. I think that her album took a different direction
It
sonically,
did.
obviously, when
Yeah.
Flo and Timbaland teamed up to really, catapult her career. And so that record just, I think sonically it didn't fit. But like if you listen to it now,
Yeah.
so it was like, man, that felt good. As a matter of fact, Carrie Hilson wrote uh, the Latoya Lucky
Yeah.
record.
Yep.
So yeah, we
I can
co-wrote
I can hear her on that one. We're gonna have to talk off the air about those other Carrie records. There's a
for sure.
couple that I want to hear. So I mean, let's get back to Tanisha Kelly for a second here, because I mean, just talk about the work that you guys did with her on those two albums. And like the crazy thing was, like, she didn't pop off in the U.S., but when you look at her numbers in Japan, like
Yeah,
she was big over there. Like that's probably one of the few artists that was able to do that at that time. Like I mean, just
yeah.
talk about the work and like just even the overseas impact and success that you guys had over there.
That was an amazing experience to be a part of. I think in that time, as a matter of fact, I vocal produced that album. And uh, her former manager and our partner Tyrell Bing was really at the spearhead of helping Tanisha put that play together in Japan. And obviously the numbers were indicative that there was a fan base for her and a demand for what she does. So what's good? So basically, we ended up putting that record together in a short period of time, maybe like over the course of like 2-3 weeks, and
Yeah.
turned around, delivered the album. Phil Tam mixed it. It was very seamless. At this point, we have our chemistry and our 1-2 down in terms of how we were working. So we got that album turned around pretty quickly. And,
Yeah.
I think Tyrell went overseas with Tanisha and took her, and they did shows and all of that stuff. So it was really good. It was a really great run, a great experience to see how the music that we were creating connected internationally.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people just look at success, first of all, Billboard charts, but also just the success in America. But there's a whole fan base, especially in R&B overseas as well,
Yeah.
that people don't know about.
Yes, they were very super supportive, super supportive. That's right around the time when things started kind of shifting.
Yeah.
The sound of radio here was kind of drifting away from R&B a little bit and starting to go more in the more trap direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's fast forward to, like you said, that time period when R&B changed. That was around 2008, 2009. What was that period like for you guys as the Cornaboyz? Did you guys have to feel like you had to change your sound a little bit? Did you feel like you had to start doing different things? Like, what was that time like?
Well, there's definitely a time of reinvention. And in fact, in 2012, around there, I think I made my transition um, from the partnership we were operating as, and I was working more so independently.
Yeah.
Um, but, even still, part of our evolution at that point based in, having to retool, re-hit sonically, figure out new drum sounds, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? The good thing about being a musician is that, that information is timeless and it translates from generation to generation. You may have to dial back musicality. You may have to, reinvent how you introduce it in the records, but ultimately, uh, it's always going to be something that you can, it's a part of your toolbox, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, in that period of time, matter of fact, 2012, I was in Miami. And so
Mm.
that was definitely a big part of my experience in Miami with Rico.
Yeah.
Really learning how to, okay, we got to refresh this R&B thing. Like we still
Yeah.
are R in our hearts and trying to preserve the integrity of it, but also we have to be hungry enough to make it aggressive to compete in today's market at that time. So, at that time we working with Rico, he was super hot and
Yeah.
everybody was coming to Miami and basically just locking in with us for days at a time. And, it helps if you hit records on the radio to have the flexibility to now explore different things. You know,
Yeah.
we fortunately, we had all of our past experience and also we had Rico at the helm with all the success of Motivation and, all of his records that he was penning at the time.
Yeah. I mean, just a lot of great songs even during that era. Like, I just think back to some of those records that were on Brandy's album that you and Rico did together.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
just
yeah.
bring me back to those studio sessions because, like, Brandy sounds great on those songs.
Yes. Oh man, that was okay. So anybody who knows me knows how much I love Brandy's voice. I think anybody who's a vocal purist is going to feel that way. But working with her um, made it that much more magical because you get in and you see like, oh, it's not smoke and mirrors. She's the real deal.
Yeah.
She everything that she sings, and she sings with such conviction.
Yeah.
That I remember that in that period of time, I was kind of doing dual duty, like we talked about earlier, where you have to kind of At the time, Rico asked me to step up into engineer for a
Yeah.
period of time while we were between engineers. And so I actually got to engineer Brandy, and
Mm.
I remember sitting there in the engineer seat, like, oh, like I was talking under my breath. Rico sitting to my right. I was like, oh my God, like she sounds so like, like I'm losing it, like to hear how amazing she sounds, like this
Wow.
is just who I've been looking up to since I was 16. Not just that, the work that Rodney and her specifically were doing together was always just, to me, the apex,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, amazing record. Hardly Breathing, Paint This House. Some great songs you guys did there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, those two, right? Oh, funny thing. I think on No Such Thing as Too Late, which is a record produced by Jim Johnson, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the process of vocal producing her on that, she was concerned because, okay, that tone that Brandy has, it's amazing, right? But
Yeah.
it all, she's been doing acting all day, using her voice. She could be coming into the studio fatigued, and sometimes we would have to like just together from, just pieces of performances. And even with that, it came out magical. That's what really blew me. It's like, man,
Wow.
just amazing. You know?
Wow. Yeah, those are some great records here. And then, I mean, we got to fast forward. I know you did a lot of songs in between, like the Rick Ross record with Usher. That's a great
Yeah,
one. But
yeah,
speaking of Usher here, man, like you've actually done a lot with Usher, even leading up to Bad Habits, which just came out. Lay You Down, you did that with him. Lessons for the Lover off the Looking for Myself album. Like, just talk about leading up to this album, this new record with Usher. Like, just talk about that work prior to putting that one out.
absolutely. Well, I have a long history with Usher, as Usher was actually one of the first people who put a deal on the table for the Cornaboyz. He was somebody that was an
Mm,
early believer in our talent, and as evidence to that, him and Rico
yeah,
ended up actually, solidifying their relationship and as an artist to artist, and he basically mentored Rico and really provided a lot of open doors for him as a songwriter. But through that relationship over the years, we were able to get back in the room with him and actually create. We ended up doing the title track for his "Looking for Myself" album,
yeah,
which was in a time where he was, exploring different sounds sonically, and that was really fun because he was giving us the leeway to really not do the typical
yeah,
R&B. He was allowing us to be able to go and explore, and really check out some things that were atypical for what we would normally do. If you listen to
right,
that through that album, there's a lot of different things happening sonically that are just, you can't just call it R&B. It's just
yeah,
him and his full bag of confidence and creativity. It was great. Um, so that leads up to, the records with Rick Ross. I know someone asked about Rick Ross and Touching You with
yeah,
Usher. That was a great experience. Also facilitated through the relationship with Rico Love, and yeah, that was a situation where I did the production on that particular record, and that was actually the interesting story with that is that record went to radio the quickest. That was the quickest
mm,
from point of inception to the point of it being released. Was one of the fastest records that I ever was a part of that really just went to the market that fast. Um,
wow,
was an amazing experience to watch that happen. But that was after we had Rico Love and I had worked on Romeo Santos. That was a
mm,
that featured Usher on that record as well. And
yeah,
um, interestingly enough, another international record that was a bachata record that went number one, stayed number one for several weeks. Hey, what's up, Antonio? I see you. Um, and another R&B legend in the room here, Antonio
yeah,
Dixon. That's my guy.
absolutely,
Love
yeah,
that dude. Uh, so yeah, and then leading up to this opportunity with Usher on his his newest single, Bad Habits. That was a record facilitated through a relationship with Keith Thomas.
Yeah.
And you kind of gave me some kudos on the vocal production of that record, but I have to set the record straight. Keith Thomas
Right.
actually vocal produced Bad
Mm.
Habits. He
Okay.
was at the helm, making sure that Usher delivered that great vocal performance. So
Wow.
kudos to him. And also, I mean, I got to give a big kudos to him because he really fought for this record. And it ended up being one of the records that Usher has admittedly said is like one of his favorites.
Yeah.
And I think in large part because of the honesty. I mean, if one thing is a hallmark of the records that we love from Usher, it's
Yeah.
not just the hits that
Yeah.
perform really well. It's also the honesty in his narrative through his records. So I think that's what really connected on this particular record as well.
Yeah. And the bridge with the computer love sample, like I thought that was
Yeah.
just brilliant how you guys put that in there.
Oh man, it's so amazing. So, you know, one thing people have to understand about when you're creating music with artists is that they're going to get in with the best of the best.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to really make sure your record can contend against the Titans. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so in this instance, you know, Usher, I think he was playing some of his records, letting some of his peers check in on it, and he goes over to Dream's house. That's how the story goes, and pushes play on some records. Dream really responds to Bad Habits. He's like, man, I think the record is a smash. And he asks him, he said, who produced it? And so Usher tells him, you know, and he was like, man, I'm gonna call Pierre. So Dream literally calls me
Wow.
after they have their meeting, and he says, hey man, you need to put the Computer Love sample in. That was actually his idea, something he called and just gave me that tidbit, like, listen, bro, this record is a smash. Don't miss the opportunity to make it magical. You know what I mean? Throw this Computer Love sample in there. It's a moment in the record. And as is evident when you watch the video, especially, you get to that bridge and it's like that release, you know, that tension release happens on the bridge, and you hear that drum beat that's like, oh man, dude. I love it.
Yeah, and what I love about that song is after the bridge, when the chorus picks back up, it's not like you guys just loop the chorus over again. You had Usher sing it all the way straight through, and it just sounds so raw, and like you can actually feel it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, Usher is top 3 best vocalists, in my opinion, that I've had the opportunity to work with, and from the standpoint of the level of intention, his level of attention to detail, and what he sings. He always makes sure that he's making you feel something. Like that's his most important goal every time he goes in. Like, it's not just to sound good. He wants to make sure that you feel where he's at. To me, that's the marker of what a great storyteller or a great singer or songstress is aiming at. You know, to make sure that every time you hear it, you're gonna love it. I share one last story with respect to Usher. I had the opportunity to engineer him on David Guetta's "Without You."
Yeah.
And that was like one of those experiences where I was like, man, like, okay, so the demo was, I think Tal Cruz did the demo. He wrote it, and they had Rico come in to vocal produce it. So as Rico and I are there, I'm engineering, and he's vocal producing Usher, and I'm listening to Usher just go deeper and deeper into the feeling pocket. Like, of course, he had the melody on point from the first listen, but he was like peeling back like an onion, like, let me get, I want to make them feel it. And if you listen to that song from top to bottom, that's like, man, that's an amazing vocal performance. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. Usher, one of the greatest.
Absolutely. So, I mean, before we wrap this up, I got to circle it back to vocal production. And, you know, like I said, one of the biggest complaints for us when it comes to vocals in 2020, to me, it feels like it's more about the vibes of the record as opposed to feeling the records and feeling that emotional connection. Like, is there a balance to the two, or is it just the way that R&B is today that you're not able to feel the records anymore?
Well, I think that's a layered question, right? Because
Yeah,
who determines what makes one feel a certain way?
true.
Culturally speaking,
Yeah,
these records that we're hearing are reflective of what makes the culture feel.
sure.
Obviously, I've heard several theories about that, right? We sit around and we talk about these type of things, we postulate these ideas. I mean, one thing I
Yeah,
heard that I thought was interesting was that, man, the young kids don't go to church anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I thought it's right, but when you start thinking about it, like, if you're not learning how, because the big part of church, and specifically the Black church experience, is a very spirited
sure.
experience. You know what I mean? And so, when you're in there and you have the songs happening and you're experiencing the melismas or the runs happening from singers, you start to understand, like, oh wow, they're not just singing random notes. They're actually like
Hmm.
communicating a feeling, and this is the
Yeah,
way they need to say it in order for you to feel it. So I think the same is true for the young generation, but they're just coming from a different space. And what I've been seeing happen more recently is that we're bridging the gap in many cases. Like, there's another
sure.
guy from hometown who's a legend in the game, has produced for everybody. His name is Troy Taylor, one of the
Oh
best,
yeah, Troy is. Yep,
one
yep.
of the in the game, right? And a big part of what makes Troy special is the fact that he is going to ensure, and this is with really with respect to all of them, we can line all the great vocal producers up. Uh,
Yeah,
Adonis Shropshire, another one that's a
yeah,
sharpshooter. But these guys, they will not tolerate you singing something that you don't feel. Because if you don't
yeah.
feel it, the listener definitely is not going to feel it, you know? And so, and all the great legends, they all live by that same standard as well. It's like, look, to me, as long as you feel it, because the thing is, I feel Young Thug the same way I feel a T or a Usher. To be honest with you,
Mm,
these guys are using melody as a conduit to communicate their feeling, but just doing it through different means. Now, if
yeah.
the moment Young Thug wants to actually sing an R&B record, or any of the rappers that use melody in the way that they do,
Yeah.
that and they want to do an actual R&B record, then it's time to bring in a real vocal producer to ensure that it's sound from top to bottom. But if your bar is set at just give me a vibe,
Hmm.
you do just enough. And the
Yeah.
thing is, auto tune has made it very convenient and easy for people to be melodically correct. But that's why you have a lot of, in many cases, a lot of singers that maybe are really pitchy live or without the help of auto tune.
Yeah.
There's a whole debate around that. But I think I have this mantra that it's on my profile on my page. I'm always saying it to my writers and producers, but artistry is informed by identity and elevated through intention. And
Mm,
what that simply means is that it's both the knowledge of who you are and
yeah.
also who you are striving to be that should
Wow.
inform what decisions you're making. So now the
Mm,
intention begins to unfold. What your real purpose is. You know what I mean? So
right. Wow. That's amazing. And yeah, I
yeah.
mean, we got to celebrate people like you, like Troy Taylor as well. I've heard stories where like you're not leaving the studio until you do exactly what Troy wants, and it sounds great.
Listen,
I've
and
heard those
look,
stories too.
he runs a tight ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
start figuring out, like, because everybody runs their show a little different.
yeah.
The vocal production
Right.
is something that is subjective and relative to the ears that are in charge of curating that moment.
Yeah.
And also the personality that's at the helm there too. So me, I have to use my economy of words because I like to pretty much keep an even keel. I'm not really like going to be super rah rah with it. You get what I'm saying? But like,
Yeah.
there's more dynamic personalities that when they get in the room, like, listen, you better key into what they're telling you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and again, it comes down to the artist that you're working with. Some artists like to be
Exactly.
co-star, like, and some artists will not get in the studio without, you know, their trusted vocal producer, like how Rihanna is with Kook. You know what I mean? And Kook is really
Yeah.
that guy to a lot of people now at this point. And he's somebody that I really look up to, and definitely try to model aspects of my career after him. Troy Taylor, like I said, Tricky Stewart, Rico Love.
Yeah.
These are all like, just, it's the pool of talent that I draw from inspiration.
Yeah, amazing. So I'm here just to wrap this up. You've got the Usher record out right now. What
Yeah,
else
yeah,
is what else are you working on? India Sean, of course. What do you have coming up?
yes. Um, we have India Sean. We've got a lot of new artists coming out too. Specifically, my artist Tamel,
Mm,
that we've been working on. She's a phenomenal, phenomenal vocalist. You can find records that we've done throughout the years online already, but we have an EP that she has coming out called Dedicated. That should be out in the next few weeks, actually, and we'll be shooting the videos and visuals for that soon to follow as well. But those are the next most important things. India Shawn, Tamel. I have a
yeah.
new writer that I just signed to Sony by the name of Rockette. And she's also an artist, and we've got her EP coming as well. So it's pretty much triangulated to those three right now. And and I cannot forget a superstar by the name of MKXYZ over there with Tricky Stewart. She's about
Yeah.
to kill the game. She actually has a single out as well right now called Pass It, featuring G-Eazy.
Mm,
Definitely go check that out. Amazing all-around entertainer. She can sing, dance, the whole nine. Really, I'm blessed to be in the company of like this caliber of talent. Her, Tamel, like, I mean, really, like, Tamel is really, really special. You know what I mean? Like, we'll be talking
yeah.
about her next time we interview for sure.
All right. Sounds good, man. That's all that I've got for you, Pierre. Anything that you'd like to add?
Man, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and spend some time with you and talk about my career thus far. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to what's coming, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you for joining us. And once again, like we're just here to celebrate all that you've done and just keep us posted on anything that you have coming up. And we'll definitely support that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, man. You take care.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.